Hi, boys and girls. We're ready for Chapter 8 today. Chapter 7 left us in suspense. Today, our vocabulary word is panic. Panic is a noun or a verb that means to get very scared. You might panic if you see a spider or a snake. It can be used as panicked or panicking. Look how the spelling of the final sound changes. So they add the K. Panic means to get very scared. So today our chapter is chapter 8 and the title is The Tomb. Before we read today, I want you to think about why the kids start to panic. Try to imagine how they feel. Chapter 8, The Tomb. Jack and Annie stood frozen. The silent soldiers did too. Finally, Annie spoke. "They're fake," she said. "Fake?" whispered Jack. "They are not real," she said. "They look real," said Jack. Annie walked straight toward the front row of soldiers. Jack held his breath. Annie pulled the soldier's nose. "Fake," she said. "Oh, brother," said Jack. He walked over to the soldier and touched his painted face. It was as hard as stone. "It's amazing," Jack said. Annie nodded. "It's like a museum." She walked down a row between two lines of soldiers. "Wait, this is spooky," said Jack. "What is this place?" He put down his sack and pulled out the china book. He found a picture of the frozen army and read aloud. The Dragon King had 7,000 life-size clay figures made for his burial tomb. The clay was baked and painted. The Dragon King hoped that the clay army would protect him after he died. "It's like the pyramid in ancient Egypt," said Jack. "Remember? The queen was buried with a boat and lots of things to take to the afterlife." So I'm going to stop here for a second. I'm going to synthesize. We learned about the pyramids a few weeks ago and how ancient Egyptians believed that they needed to bring things with them when they died. Now we see that the emperor in ancient China believed the same thing. So I think that to understand ancient civilizations, we have to think about what they believed and know that it may be different from what we know and believe now. So something they did a long time ago that we don't do anymore. He looked around. "Annie, I'm here," she called. She was far down another row. "Come back here," yelled Jack. "No, you come here," said Annie. "It's so cool. All the faces are different." Jack threw the book into his sack. Then he hurried down the row to Annie. "Look," she said, "just look." In the flickering lamplight, they wandered down the rows of soldiers. No two soldiers had the same nose, the same eyes, or the same mouth. "Oh man, no wonder so many people had to work on this tomb," said Jack. "They really did a good job," said Annie. "Yeah," said Jack. There were kneeling archers and foot soldiers dressed in red and black armor. There were real bronze swords, daggers, axes, spears, bows, and arrows. There were even life-size wooden chariots with horses. The horses looked completely real. They were different colors with white teeth and red tongues. "I have to take some notes about all this," said Jack. He pulled out his notebook and pencil. Then, kneeling on the brick floor, he wrote, "No two faces the same, not even the horses." "Jack," said Annie, "you know what?" "What?" "I think we're lost," she said. "Lost?" Jack stood up. "We're not lost." "Yeah, then which way is out?" said Annie. Jack looked around. All he could see were rows of soldiers in front of them, to the right, to the left, behind them, nothing but clay soldiers. "Which way did we come in?" said Annie. "I don't know," said Jack. All the rows looked the same. They stretched out endlessly. Jack tried not to panic. I'd better look this up, he said. Forget it, said Annie. Morgan said the research book would guide us, but in our darkest hour, the ancient legend would save us. Is this our darkest hour? Asked Jack. Annie nodded. Yeah, it's pretty dark. It does seem to be getting darker in here, thought Jack. The air was getting thicker, too. It seemed harder to breathe. Let's ask for help, said Jack. He reached into the sack and pulled out the bamboo book. He held it up and said, Save us! As Jack waited, the tomb seemed unbearably quiet. Jack held the book up again. Please help us find our way out, he said. He and Annie kept waiting, but nothing happened. The air was growing even thicker. The light was getting dimmer. The countless rows of soldiers seemed creepier. Help did not come. Jack felt faint. I guess we'll just have to... Look, said Annie. What? A ball of thread. It rolled out of your sack, she said. So what? Said Jack. He looked at his cloth sack lying on the floor. The ball of yellow silk thread had rolled out, and it was still rolling, leaving a trail of yellow thread. So as you reread, I want you to think about how the kids solve their problem.